Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After Show. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this, my second channel, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with all the Flat Earth Debate pre-show and after-show goodness. If you'd like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal and crypto link in the info box below the video. Now, we're joined by a whole bunch of people as we are in the interim stages between the two debates, so I will raise the mic while I set up the next live show over on Nathan Oakley 1980 channel.
So what are we going to talk about then? Are we going to just remind people about how flat the Earth is? We might as well whilst there's a lull in the opposition. Unless there's actually somebody out there with some real credible evidence to prove something. You all think we live on a ball, right? You must have evidence to support your opinion.
There's nobody out there with anything other than affirming the consequent form or logical fallacy and begging the question. That's all they have. How the truth
Nathan,
works.
you do realise that essentially what's actually happened is that you've been too successful and frightened off all the trolls. They have to use fallacious reasoning, which is that Nathan's a bully. He's got the mute button.
Well, they got snipers.
Yeah. Battlefield. There's going to be those lulls, Anthony, where the main protagonists on the globe side just don't want a bar of it. They don't want to be told over and over again that they're using a logical fallacy and then have it be pointed out while I stop them from obfuscating. Because ideally, they come in, they assert their logical fallacy, and then while I try and pick it apart, they just talk non-stop. And I'll shut them up. Yeah, I'll mute them. I don't give a fuck. I'll shut them up because the audience gets to hear how it's a logical fallacy. And by rumpusing, they used to get away with that. So that's why they want to drag me kicking and screaming away from the platform I've set up to do just that. Shut them up and say, listen, audience, they might want to convince you, the Muppets that believe this shit, that they've actually got a point here. They haven't. Here's why. It's a logical fallacy. It doesn't have scientific evidence. It doesn't conform to science. Whatever picks it apart. But they just rumpus that. And because I don't let them rumpus it, they call foul.
Yeah, I think you have to accept that Rumpus is the creator of the phrase for a good reason. And if you look at the name that he has, Rumpus, that is basically what they're doing. They have to obfuscate the point. And we noticed it a while back. And it was when the paper explanator was asked by Hank, how did they know the distance to the stars? And his opening line was, yes, you've got to assume that the sun is 93 million miles away. And Hank didn't spot that was, and neither did we, to be honest. But basically, he's affirming the consequence, or he's basically like, he's admitting that you've got to assume essentially assume the distance to the sun is 93 million miles. Well, we're trying to prove that that's 93 million miles. So no, let's not assume it. Let's prove it before we do anything. And then obviously they can't. So it all comes from, well, basically, what's his face? Hank. So shout out to Hank. I know he doesn't come on the show very much anymore, but he left his mark is the way I would describe that.
Sure. Well, he was trying, he was working his way through the obfuscation, wasn't he, basically? Because that got obfuscated for an hour on a 2-hour show. So he came in at 15 minutes, made his point 10 minutes later. An hour after that, the point got addressed, or conceded, technically speaking, by paper explanator. Where he's like, well, we have to assume the sun is 97 million miles away. Or 93.
Yep.
So I have a challenge for the next show that I'll bring up that may invite some interesting conversation.
Go on.
I'll wait until the show starts before
we're starting now, so
elaborate on the challenge.
No worries. I was holding off because I thought you were going to tell me beforehand, so I'll just start now. Just trying to change the title slightly, but it's there we go.
Yeah, there has to be an assumption and a guesswork piece of information in all the ballers. You know, a little just so study has to be an assumption there somewhere.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal and crypto link in the info box below the video. But most importantly, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show on Instagram, Facebook and Twitter. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by Zinda, Spec, Sleeping Warrior, Ranty Flat Earth, Karen B, Jose, Eric, Daniel and Arwin. Good to have you all.
Hola.
Good afternoon.
Yo, yo.
Hello.
Hey, how's it going? Hey. Hello.
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 Well, we survived the 666th show.
Very little talk about the number, so I thought if a conversation dries up, I'll just say, well, what suspicions and hocus pocus have we got around the 666 number? But we never got to it. So we did on the 665 show, and now we're probably going to do it on the 667 show. But there we go. We had a good chat anyway. Some guy pretending to be a Rasta. All good fun.
Let's just poke the bear a bit. Let's just name some people that can't prove the stuff that they believe. Like, for example, Rumpus can't prove that light bends around the curve of an Earth.
Slice Arcane can't debunk Ranty's observation. He's just ignored it.
Slice Arcane can't model the conspiracy cats thing with an atmosphere, but claims that it's true anyway, but devoid of an atmosphere. I say no.
Slice Arcane, Red's Rhetoric, all their ilk, their claims before when they were saying the inferior mirage was it was where the curve of the Earth is. It's proved.
Hey, by the way, Nathan,
that must hurt them.
Nathan, I've had a concession that I'm not. I can't say who because it's a trusted baller. But I've been told that Red's Rhetorics actively told his people on his panel not to mention your name. In other words, don't mention Nathan Oakley. Let's not publicise him because derp. But your name's actively now not mentioned on anything to do with Red's Rhetoric. Apparently.
Oh, good. Yeah, it's like not wanting to mention the rapist. Yeah, I rammed that R so far up his arse that now he doesn't ever want to mention me again. Well, it must have been painful. Yeah, because the second I see him, I'll say, right, let's see your maths. Oh, what's that R value you're assuming there, Red's Rhetoric? Everything you talk about hinges on it, doesn't it? I wouldn't want to talk about me either, because I destroy all of your arguments, Red. That's why you don't want to talk about me, because I'd absolutely pummel you if you ever made any assertion, because every assertion you make requires an assumption, doesn't it? And that's been rammed up good and proper.
Didn't you say Red's Rhetoric was your bitch?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
I got one. Shout out to Soundly. He say, ignore the bit in the bottom of the buildings and in the bottom of the long distance observations. Don't focus on the inferior mirage and the atmospheric conditions. You have to look at the top of the buildings. And then you kind of ignore and sweep under the rug all the stuff that is going down in the bottom of the observations. Yeah, right.
Any obstructions curve.
Rumpus got the eternal flu. Until he's got something new to get his teeth into, then he's all keen.
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
Rumpus? 99% you say? Oh, yeah. Heavy cold, but you've got 99% of it done. Okay. We've stopped caring. We don't care. You're an idiot.
Well, let me remind people what happened with Sly last night when we were talking about the effects of the refraction, the atmospheric refraction that he didn't have in his model. Basically, his position is that it's only worth about a pixel anyway. So on the one hand, I've got Sly saying the amount of refraction on his model that he didn't put in atmospheric refraction to is only worth a pixel. But then we have Rumpus, of course, that has to account for 700 feet. And we know that light doesn't bend that way. So bit of a problem. We have on the one hand Sly saying one thing, but we have Rumpus on the other hand saying the opposite. So what are we to accept and believe to be true?
Nah,
The Earth
you
is
can fit
the Earth
700
is
feet
flat.
in a pixel.
That's what you can accept because it's blatantly obvious. And all of their mathematical nonsense that says we need to add pixels or remove pixels or quantify anything we ever see ever is nonsense. As flat earthers, we don't need to do any of that crap. None of it is necessary. There's a boat. There's my explanation. Didn't need one. It's a boat. Oh, what's that you say? Oh, maybe there should be Earth curve in front of this clock. No, I just say clock. There it is. I see it. It's there. You can go and photograph it yourself if you like. It's a clock. It's at Barrow. Do I need to explain it? No. Oh, what's that you say? You must explain it. Oh, right. Well, that's because you've got a religious belief. So that clock shouldn't be there, you say? Well, it is. There it is. No explanation needed. Shout out to Retro Bill for the super chat. Listening every day and loving it. Thanks, Nathan. Oh, really appreciate it. Thank you, Retro Bill. But there you go. Clock. End of explanation. Church. End of explanation. Boat. End of explanation. I can hold up my mouse and say mouse. No explanation required. But in the world of globetards, beyond a certain distance, things suddenly need explaining, don't they? Suddenly they're slightly looming non-standard refraction hyenas of an island in the distance. We just say, Isle of Man. They say, slightly looming non-standard refraction hyena. We need to get this into the program. We need to look at it compared to the model. We need to explain why we see it when we shouldn't. No, we don't need to. Isle of Man. End of explanation for a flat earther.
Nathan. Slightly looming non-standard refraction hyena. Sly's taking credit for that. He believes that you've copied him something that he said in one of his shows and he can prove it. And I'm like, what? It came as a result of hyena, didn't it?
It came as a result of a commenter called, guess what?
It wasn't it.
Slightly looming non-standard refraction hyena, the commenter.
Yeah, it evolved from hyena, right?
Yeah. He ended up having
Sly's taking credit for it, saying that you've copied something that he said, and I'm like, I don't think so. It naturally evolved in the Isle of Man stuff, as far as I'm aware. To
the point where I've now got an automatic button to shout the guy out in his new name, which is probably wrong because he's probably changed it since then. So I've got shout out to legendary, super looming perspective enigma hyena, and then a link to the video he made about me beating up Rumpus in like some Matrix theme. But yeah, you know, it's a guy who commented called slightly looming non-standard refraction hyena. We just adopted it for your nonsense where you assert when we see something, and we do see it, we've got a photo, you say that we need to account for it as an aberration, or as a hologram, or as a, guess what, slightly looming non-standard refraction hyena, which is what you guys claim it is. Nah, just a clock. Nah, just a church. Nah, just a boat. As a flat earther, that's the end of the explanation. Non-needed. It's a concrete noun. We see it because it's there. You say, oh, it's beyond this distance, and the calculator says it shouldn't be. Who cares? Your calculator's for religious zealots only. Keep your calculator.
Hold on, really quick. Riley, did you know, I noticed a little piece of something yesterday on the slide hangout. He's using a tactic that I haven't seen is being used, which is changing the hidden figures. Like, let's say if it's 700 feet, 600 feet hidden, he said that is nothing. That is a 0.002 degrees, or this certain little tiny amount of degrees. Like, they use the argument for you don't feel 1,000 miles per hour in the equator of a spin. You just feel one rotation every 24 hours. So they're changing the tactic of instead of saying this amount in feet is hidden, is this amount of degrees, which is very noticeable. And I hope, I think they're going to start using that little technique of obfuscation.
Changing the scale, yeah. But what he doesn't do when he changes the scale is point out that it's at 30 miles or 100 miles. He just goes, it's 0.3 of a degree. Well, that may be true, but 0.3 of a degree over X amount of mileage is still a large amount of changing horizon relative to the so-called curve of the Earth.
Just out of interest, not that I watched Sly, but did he take into account the angular size of the obstruction in the near foreground, i.e. the claimed curve?
No, we didn't get that far. We got to refraction and then it stopped.
Guys, if you're going to start claiming that after you've used the begging the question proof of nothing perspective hijacking curve calculator, you can start calling things in angles after you've done that calculation so that the audience, the stupid ones, think that you've somehow accounted for angular size, wrong. Unfortunately, when you start using those terms, I'll start asking you if you've taken into account the angular size of the 170-foot wall obstruction that's in the near foreground, just at 8 miles on the horizon, which you think is the leading edge of a sphere, even though we see no x-axis curvature. So that leading edge of the sphere, that's a... how big an obstruction, you say? 140-foot wall in the way? Well, how much bigger would it be if it's in the near foreground? Let's work out the angular size on that obstruction. What's that, you say? Everything's obscured behind it in your mathematics? Oh dear, perspective doesn't jive well with those calculations now, does it? Maybe it's because you've replaced perspective with curvature.
Yeah. Slippery, there's that many things that you can pick them up on, but they don't like being picked up on it, so they have to say many points so that you can't pick up on one point. It's a tactic called...
scattergunning.
What's it called?
Scattergun.
Scattergunning, that's right. Scattergun.
Yeah, they all do it. You get to a point where you've completely dismantled their argument. I can't remember who it was yesterday. I think it was that that Dench guy. And he asserts distance to the sun. We start picking it apart when we're close to the end, because obviously he doesn't want you to let the conclusion get out on air. He just wants to have verbal diarrhea. Moves immediately onto gravity. Let's go on to the next point. Let's not let you have a concise ending where you demolish my argument concisely and point out what utter nonsense it is. You know, rather that, let's move on. Next. No. Just crap tactics from someone with no argument, basically.
The art of debate, eh?
Beautiful thing.
Or the deception of the debate.
Yeah. At the moment, their only tactic is to stop you from actually being able to make your point once you dismantle an argument. That's why they're calling foul so much. Oh no, he stops us from talking. No, you verbal diarrhea over a concise debunking of your assertion. And you don't like that. You want to be able to rumpus the shit out of every single demolition of your point. So you manage to keep some face when you make these nonsense assertions. So you can make them and I can pick them apart.
Exactly right.
But so long as you don't let the audience hear me picking apart, it's almost like you've made a point. Well, that's the best you've got. Well, sod that. I can control that. That's what they're complaining about, right? I mute them. Well, no. Dench comes in and thinks he can talk 90% of the time, answer a question that's directed at Zinda. No, that don't fly. I've got to control this hangout. If they don't like it, come and be concise, offer an argument that's not fallacious, give us some actual science, and believe me, we'll hear you. But when you just parrot the same garbage we've heard 300 times, down the mic as loud as you possibly can, as fast as you possibly can, over the top of every single address to your concise shite, then I'm going to shut you up. Don't like it, don't come. That's absolutely fine by me. Just because it's a flat earth friendly show.
Like many arguments, right? Like there's a lot of observations and arguments that ensue. And I have a challenge to ball earthers and flat earthers that how would you prove the shape of the earth to a blind person?
That's a good question. It's a brilliant question, actually.
If you lack the sense of sight, you know, how would you prove it? You know, are blind people automatically flat earthers? Are they automatically ballers? I mean, how would you actually prove it? And it seems to me that the only way that ballers could do it is with math. But I think flat earthers have a better argument.
I see what you're saying, but it would take, obviously, a bit of trust in terms of what we see and conveying that to them. So, for instance, the proof on this show in the last Isle of Man lighthouse, 31 miles away, should be a massive 170-foot wall obstruction in the way, according to their mathematics. But for me, I'd just tell them that I can see that lighthouse at 31 miles, and there isn't actually any explanation required until someone comes along and says, actually, no. Because the Earth's a sphere, in other words, immediately affirming the consequent, there's this effect going on. It's not really there. Your man's telling you he can see it, but really it's not there. It's a mirage. It's being loomed up beyond that curve that's in the way. In other words, there's a counter argument you could have without having any actual visuals on screen, as long as obviously everyone's on the up and up and no one's lying. But the problem with that is the globe heads often do literally lie. We've got conspiracy cats at the moment laying quote-unquote traps in his so-called proofs of the globe. So, you know, like, these guys are on the straight and narrow. So for us as a flat earther, you say, I see that there's Isle of Man at 80 miles. You know, Earth's obviously flat. That would be a very short conversation with a blind guy, because I can't get him to actually see what I see on screen now. You know, this is the wide angle of Barrow, for anybody who doesn't know what this picture on screen is. You know, that boat that we see with the clock behind it, this is just zoomed out. Well, you look at this and go, yeah, the reason we can see the stuff at Barrow about 16, 17 miles away is because between us and it, there's nothing obscuring the view. Why would there be? It's just flat as a pancake everywhere you look. There's no curve anywhere. Nothing suggests that stuff's dropping behind the horizon. It's just getting smaller with distance. The globe heads have replaced that. So the only way you have to justify it being flat in the first instance is when you have a fallacious assertion that it isn't. Because as far as I'm concerned, it being flat is obvious.
Can I just address this claim of trap by conspiracy cats? If Ranty does a video and he says, I'm at Nicky Nuke and I can see A, B, and C, and I'm not going to give you any more information because I don't want to, for whatever reason. If he's then asked to produce evidence for where he actually was, when he says he's on Nicky Nook, it could be the car park at the bottom, it could be the peak of the hill, it could be anywhere, right? If he's asked for evidence to produce it, it's not, you can't claim that that's a trap. It means that you've not produced the evidence in the first place to be able to validate the claim. It's not a trap to be able to claim that when somebody asks for it, it's a trap. What it is, it actually is the failure to produce the evidence that's obviously required in the first place to validate the claim. So for anybody that thinks that this is a trap, that's conspiracy cats, even though he's calling it a trap, it isn't. It's simply the case that he should have provided this information at the start, didn't because he basically doesn't want to. But it isn't a trap that he's setting, because a trap means that you're going to suffer if you ask for it. Well, he's supposed to provide it. The obligation is on him to provide it, and he's not doing it. And basically the conversation can't go any further until we can validate the claim, and he's not allowing us to validate the claim, but calling it a trap. It's not a trap. It's literally the case that you've not produced the evidence that you are expected to produce to support the idea or the assertion that you're claiming to be true. Well, you haven't done it. So it isn't a trap. He's calling it a trap, and people seem to be believing that it's a trap. It's not. It's an omission that he's repackaging as the word trap. But it's amazing how many dumbasses believe and accept and can now call this thing a trap. No, it's his assertion to prove, and he hasn't proved it. When he's been asked for the evidence, he's then cried victim and said that it's a trap. It's not a trap.
Not a trap. He just fucked up.
Yeah, he needs to produce the evidence to validate the claim, because it's the same with us. If we don't put our elevation data on, and even if we do put our elevation data on, it still causes a discussion of some kind. But that don't make it a trap. It just means that literally it's a case that you're failing to produce the information that you are expected to produce. It's not a trap, though. It's a failing on your part.
Yeah, if I could be bothered, I'd go back and edit Gem Panda and Paper Explanator and Rumpus laughing their heads off when you've quoted Google Earth. Not giving anything. You've given Google Earth what is, or formerly known as their model, right? You've used the data from that, ridiculed. In fact, on the non sequitur, discounted out of hand based on Google Earth's inaccuracy with the number actually given by Anthony. Now, we haven't even been given a figure. You know, we've been told, accept this. Well, where's it come from? Where's the reference? How do we check that? Do we get the opportunity to disregard it out of hand if it's come from Google Earth? You know? Oh, right, we don't get it at all. Oh, right, well, let's just not play that game. That's just stupid. Isn't this supposed to be a globe proof?
Do you know where Sly got the information from last night? He cited the elevation data on Google Earth.
Oh, right. Well, those guys discounted the Isle of Man observation, which we're now constantly putting on screen. It's on screen right now, based on an inaccuracy in a globe Earth map representation of the world. So because it was out by a matter of 20 metres, apparently that meant they could disregard everything.
20 feet it was out, and it was only 17 as well, not 20. But my point is that when I basically used Google Earth to plot what the elevation was, I didn't know it was out by a bit. Now, they told us that there was a variation of plus or minus 50 meters, right? Now, that's nonsensical given that the height was less than 100 meters anyway. But the point is that they said that you can't use Google Earth because it's out by up to 50 meters. But I was quite shocked and surprised when Sly cited from Google Earth the elevation of this thing. And I'm like, really? You're going to use Google Earth to support the assertion that this is a particular elevation? Do you not remember what happened when I did that at Isle of Man? We got told that we couldn't do it because it was massively out of whack.
Well, maybe Conspiracy Cats is unaware. He's obviously new to the scene. You need to get your tape measure out, mate. You need to get your ass over there and actually measure it. Otherwise, we'll do what you did. Your side of the argument, that is. Which is disregard it out of hand because somebody's using Google Earth. I mean, come on. Really? Google Earth? You're joking.
Yeah.
Isn't this supposed to be like clear and concise? When Ranty puts stuff up, it's really obvious. There's something, it's there, we see it. End of explanation for a flat earther. Roll on the garbage nonsense to explain away why it doesn't work in their reification fallacy, the globe model. Yeah, that's how we play this game. What do they offer us? Something laden with traps that doesn't make any sense, doesn't have enough data, that's apparently there specifically for me as an individual when I've got no interest in him. I'd be absolutely disgusted if I was actually an audience member of his. It's like, you what? So this video isn't for us. It's a trap for Nathan. You're having a laugh, right? So this isn't the right data and taken as read then. It's a little game you're playing. Where's your globe proof? Why aren't you just proving the globe? Shouldn't it be really easy and simple and concise if you do actually live on a globe? Why are you playing games?
Well, he doesn't think that it's for him to prove. He thinks it's for us to disprove his assertion. And I'm like, no, you have to prove your assertion, dude. Nah, I don't have to do that. This is how the game goes. And he basically then blamed Nathan. He was like, well, Nathan's done this, and it wouldn't have gone to this if Nathan had done that and the other. And I was like, I'm done with you, dickhead.
Well, the guy's obsessed
it's not
with
about
me.
Personality, it's about what you can prove.
The guy's obviously obsessed with me. Don't know why. Soften that hard on for me, my friend. I'm not interested.
I don't get it. I don't understand why he doesn't understand that it's for him to prove that we live in a sphere. It's not for me to prove that we don't. He's got to prove the burden does lie with him.
Do you want to just, if you would, Anthony, just bring up the burden of proof reversal fallacy just so we can spell it out to these idiots? That if you make an assertion, it's not down to the person you're making it to disprove your assertion. You have to actually prove it. These people, all they do is use fallacious reasoning and fallacious arguments. That's all they do.
So you want the burden of proof reversal fallacy on?
But that's basically what it's doing, isn't it? You disprove it. Well, what are you talking about? It's your claim. Well, disprove it with limited information and say that you've conceded already. What? Shout out to I am for the super chat. Thank you very much.
Part of me wants to use the Wikipedia one because it's their favourite weapon, but they don't like it when I use it because they say that that's as far as I'm prepared to go with it. So I think we can't go with the burden of proof reversal from Wikipedia. We'll have to go from somewhere else. Logically, shifting the burden of proof, logically fallacious. This is for the people that don't like Wikipedia when it doesn't benefit you. For everybody else, generally speaking, this is right. So, shifting the burden of proof, making a claim that the Earth might be a sphere, for instance, conspiracy cats, that needs justification, evidence in this case, then demanding that the opponent justifies the opposite of the claim, which is exactly what he's doing at the minute. The burden of proof is a legal and philosophical concept with differences in each domain. In everyday debate, the burden of proof typically lies with the person making the claim, in this case, conspiracy cats. But it can also lie with the person denying a well-established fact or theory. Well, it can only come after that if you're going to prove that your claim is right in the first place. Because basically, if you're going to claim that this is a well-established fact or theory, sure, but you're going to have to prove it first, right? And that's the debate. We're trying to say you guys can't prove your claim.
No, that's the... Hold on. No. The globe is not a well-established fact. Yeah? If it's theory, and it's referring to scientific theory, then that's based on an establishment of systematic experimentation led from hypothesis. So if you're talking scientific theory, then, yeah, you need to actually prove stuff. And if it's a well-established fact, then it'd be a well-established fact. It isn't every assertion to do with it has fallacious reasoning behind it. So to say, well, it's consensus opinion, that's not a well-established fact. That's consensus opinion. The consensus believes the Earth's a sphere. That's not a well-established fact. That's our very argument. If it was a well-established fact, we'd have some scientific evidence. We'd have some facts. Not fallacious reasoning. Not automatically assuming the outcome.
So we've got an explanation here that says conspiracy cats made a claim that requires justification. Riley, or Sleeping Warrior, asked for evidence. But conspiracy cats shifted the burden of proof to Sleeping Warrior when Sleeping Warrior was unable to refute conspiracy cats because we've not got the information we've asked for. Conspiracy cats then claims victory. It's basically exactly what we're saying. He's not giving us the information that we're asking for. The guy's a Yahoo.
Yeah, just another exercise in logical fallacy, as always. But we said it yesterday. So, claim a victory. Claim a victory. Good for you.
Yeah, that's the only thing we can do. Just allow him to claim a victory because, well, he doesn't want to prove his claim. But we'll just point out to everybody that you can only claim a victory if it's sincere, and it isn't sincere.
Yeah, well, a lot of this is appealing to people who want to be deluded. So they're looking for confirmation bias, and they'll find it with him. So, you know, if he's appealing to that audience that really doesn't want to find out the truth, and something convoluted and a little bit shrouded in traps or whatever seems like it's proving your religious belief, then people can take solace in that. Good for you, you know. If you want to believe that crap, good for you. It's not a proof of the sphere.
What I did manage to find out off Sly, for which I'm going to give credit, was that the difference between the peak of Mount Rainier, whatever it's called, on a ball, the difference between the peak of Rainier on a ball compared to the peak of Rainier on a flat plane is 0.754 of a degree. But that works out to be 2,200 meters. That's the difference, right? So Conspiracy Cats is claiming that it's basically there's a load missing, right? But he hasn't got his baseline correctly stated. But now I know the difference between the two peaks, and I know where the bases sit at sea level. Then we can show where it actually sits. So I'm just waiting for his next move. But unless he produces the evidence to support his assertion, there is nothing else that I can do. Kind of stuck.
It's all nice. These games are fun in a small way. Also fun to point out how garbage the evidence for the sphere is. You know, soundly, conspiracy cats, convoluted nonsense, refraction effects. This is what these guys want to latch onto as proof of their religion. And in many ways you think, okay, if that's the tenuous proof that you want to cling to, then so be it, you know. That makes you sleep at night, then fair enough. It's not true. The Earth's not a sphere. It never was.
May not even be flat though, Nathan. Probably is flat, but it could be something else.
Like what?
A what's it? A Pringle? Anything?
Will they have some
we
curvature?
could be living in a crater on top of a big ball. Who knows?
Okay,
but we just know it's not a ball the size they tell us.
The local observable area is obviously and observably flat.
Yeah, I agree.
Travelled pretty much all over the world. I can say that from my own experience. What I've observed of the world is obviously flat. And when you study it in the local topography like we do, it confirms that it's flat. Then you have something like this with two
large
mountains.
Bodies of water measure flat.
Yeah. Water at rest is absolutely flat. It doesn't conform to a sphere. So yeah, well, the beyond the realm that we know, it could be anything, Anthony. Yes, I'll concede. I don't know what I don't know.
Which is, of course, the only position that you really can take, because we don't know the bigger picture. We may never know the bigger picture, but we do realise that it can't be a sphere of the size they tell us, because you've got to be able to see that curve, and we don't see that curve. It presents itself as flat. Yeah, you get a little bit of atmospheric stuff on the horizon, and it causes the debate. But this curve is there all the time, 24/7, 7 days of the week. We don't see it.
I don't know if Ranty's around. Hopefully he can tell us a bit about what he's doing at the moment, or will be doing over the next few weeks. You there, Ranty? Maybe not. I'll fill the audience in. So Ranty's got a good reference point with a pole that's a few miles out in the body of water between him at... where is he taking those pictures from? Blackpool. And the Barrow Inverness pictures that we've had up on this show. So between him and it, there is a reference. And according to the globe heads, when we see this stuff, it's looming, right? It's a hologrammatic effect of stuff from beyond the curve being loomed up so that it can sit in our line of sight by virtue of light bending at 7/6 the radius of the presupposed spherical Earth. All nonsense. Nonetheless, Ranty's got this reference in between the 2 points, so he can line up the tops of the buildings with this pole, and you can see the effect of the atmospheric conditions and the water level rising and falling, obscuring the bottom with a limited angle or with atmospheric effects. But the top, that lines up perfectly with this pole, seems to be pretty consistently there, unless it's a complete washout of a day. You can see that they're not moving a smegging inch. They're not looming up when you see all of them. You're just losing the bottoms of them to the effects that we describe in terms of the limited angle or the atmosphere. And that's consistent. So hopefully, Renty's already put one video out, and I nearly left a comment, but it would have sounded slightly negative, so I didn't in the end. But to say, you've basically smashed this out of the park in the first video. So you've referenced it to something back a few months ago with the P900 and then compared it to an observation you did 3 days ago in Barrow. And he smashed it out of the park. You're like, this ain't looming. This is being obscured at the bottom, and the water is rising and falling. There's a I forgot what he called it, but like a bore or something where the wave, like a front of the wave, pushes in as it narrows.
A rip tide, isn't it?
Not a riptide, there was a different word for it. Tidal bore, I think it's called. But ultimately that's pushing the level of the water up, limiting the angle further, and obscuring the bottom because it's reaching the diffraction limit with the higher level of water. Or there's atmospheric effects getting between you and it. And this effect is being demonstrated by Ranty. It's already been done on his second to last video I think he published. So yeah, just smashes it out of the park with a comparison. None of it's looming, it's complete nonsense, but they want us to automatically assume we can't trust our own eyes, this stuff isn't really there, let's start calculating it because it's not a concrete noun, we don't really see it, it's actually an observed phenomena. Why? Well, because it's beyond a certain distance, silly person. Beyond a certain distance, anything you see is a slightly looming non-standard refraction hyena, because we live on a globe. No, we don't.
Yeah, you said it quite better than I could, Nathan.
Oh, you are there, Ranty.
Yeah,
what are you doing? Just tell us about it.
No way. Oh, sorry, let me interrupt a sec. Captain Caps Lock can't join because somebody's blocked him. Who's blocked Captain Caps Lock? He's only been on one show once. Someone's blocked him.
I think the panel's full.
I know, but he said, I can't join. Someone is blocking me. Strange. Somebody's blocked him from the only show that he came on yesterday. There's no ballers on the panel now, is there?
No. Well, as I was saying, Nathan, yeah, I mean, essentially, it's like we've been asking for proof of looming. So in the absence of any proof of looming, I think to try and disprove the idea that things loom up is the only other way to go. So that's what I'm doing with these observations. Well, going forward anyway.
Yeah, if there's an assertion that stuff's rising up beyond a curve we can't see, well, let's see it in the interim stages. Well, no, that's not what you're getting. It's the same every time. Right, Ranty?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I've got a post, and I've triangulated it, and I will be going to Fleetwood to actually try and zoom in on it, but I'm pretty sure it's about 3.5 miles away from the observation point, and the buildings of Barrow are some 18 miles plus away. So, you know, there's a good line of sight. Look at the post, look at the buildings behind it, and the top of the post, which has a star on, is always in the same position as the top of the buildings. So if when I've been told before that the buildings of Barrow have been loomed up and that's why I've been able to see them, Well, that must mean that there's looming going on in this area. So if I go down and I film the same from the same height, same position, looking at the same buildings on different days, different weather conditions, high tide, low tide, and I do that for a month, 2 months, and we don't see any kind of change between the top of the building and the star, then it kind of disproves their argument for looming, and it's a massive win for flat Earth because essentially their 7.6R, every observation, 7.6R, yeah, and then we can apply this, we can apply that extra refraction, yeah. Well, if I can disprove that notion of looming, then they've got nothing because they haven't been able to prove looming to us. But if I can disprove looming to them or to everybody, then it's, as I say, it's a massive win.
And to be honest, it's not for you to prove that it's not. It's for them to prove that it is.
Yeah, well, we've been asking for a year. They haven't produced it. Well, so in lieu of that, and the fact that they haven't been able to prove it, well, yeah, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll just go and disprove it. Take their little 7.6R away.
I've got to agree. It's asserted that we just arbitrarily accept 7.6R. Looming happens. It happens at terrestrial refraction rate of 7.6R. You just have to accept it. It's real. It is refraction, even though it's not. But the idea of stuff bending up from behind the curve can be and is being debunked by Ranty. So on the most part, I totally agree with you, Anthony. Why should we? We can just take that route. But it's like me saying don't beg the question and work with the calculator like you're doing with Sly at the moment. If you weren't doing that, you I don't know what you'll get out of it now, but maybe you'll get something new out of it that you hadn't got before. But just cutting the legs off and saying, like I do, to people like Rumpus, why are we accepting an arbitrary 7.6R? Have you proved R? No. Well, let's not use it then. And that ends the conversation. But for some people in the audience, they'll go, yeah, but I'm just going to accept that. Well, okay, why? Well, let's think of a crap answer. Dawn Treader. Well, nature is variable. Right, Dawn. So it could be looming up. Well, Ranty's going out showing, no, Ed, it's not looming. It's not coming up from beyond the curve. It's just in the same bloody place every time you go and look. The conditions between you and it change a bit, but that's it. The pole at your closest point that you can see matches up with the stuff in the background at the same rate every time. If it was looming, it would drop, it would raise. It'd be in a different position, right? Can't always be looming.
The issue is this looming claim is that it's being brought back from behind a curve, right? So even if looming as a concept is the moving of the horizon, which we do see in Skunk Bay, you've got to show that it's doing it behind a curve, not that it's moving up and down as an effect of refraction, because it's got to be done behind a curve. In other words, just prove R.
Right. So hey, I'm going to drop if anybody, if a baller wants to join.
I'm going to try and read Pete Shea's comment. 7/6R equals 42 encoded. 42 equals 24 backwards equals 88872. Name of God, we're told. 72 equals 888, 888, 888, 888. Thanks, Pete.
Okay.
Where were you on show 666?
Yeah, Agent Shay.
Hey, see you guys later.
See you later.
Later, Arwen.
So, Karen, what kind of perception do you have of the ballers at the minute? Do you find them to be just flogging a dead horse, or do you find them? Where are you at with the ballers?
Flogging a dead horse? Yeah, that's probably a pretty accurate description.
Hey, Apollo. The only one really I can come up with. I mean, they're pushing this belief, this religious belief that they all have, clearly. But trying to make out that we're the ones with the belief. It's like, really? I find it absurd.
Hey, Apollo. Can you hear us?
Hey.
Good to have you.
Hello, Apollo.
Got a bit of a fan base, in the comments. Several people have said, the show gets really good when Apollo's on. So you got your fans, my friend.
Okay.
I'm not familiar with Apollo. Are you a flat earther or a ball earther?
Ball earther.
Hey, Karen. Yeah, I am on the 24/7/ODD Discord, but I almost never have any discussion. I'm just on it for the lols.
For the lols?
For the lols. Love it.
Oh, dense pressure. Oh.
Exactly. How do you know?
You're the pedophile.
What? That's nonsense.
That's a bit of a
Yeah,
strong
you're the
statement.
one who was hitting on little teenagers, young teenagers in your 20s. Yeah, I know about you.
Apollo seems like he's in his 20s.
I was going to say, maybe he's the victim of pedophilia. Look at him.
Or something.
That's got to be the strongest statement I've ever heard Karen say in my life.
A lot of things come out on Discord servers. My moderators are very astute.
Don't make it true, though, does it?
I really, well, whatever. It's an overblown story. And I wasn't hitting on her. And I was talking with a he, by the way. So I've been told different things. Sometimes I remember hearing that she's a he, but later on it's a he. So I don't know anymore. I mean, you can say anything on the internet, whatever gender you are.
So were you hitting on people over the internet, though?
No.
Okay, kind of
whatever. He's the one who used to run the Flat Earth Society Discord. He called his Discord the Flat Earth Society, but it was run by a bunch of ballers. It was basically a troll Discord.
No, it was not a troll Discord, Karen.
Yes, it was.
No, it was not. We're sure it was not. Just I know you guys hate the Flat Earth Society, but my Discord was not a troll server. I mean, I was serious about it, and many of
you were serious about having a Discord that was basically run by ball earthers that was called the Flat Earth Society.
Well, does it matter if
why would
a place
you know very well that nobody that's into flat Earth or researching even recognizes the flat Earth. Why would you do that unless you're trying to mislead people?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Why would you do that?
Because I can't see my Google screen, by the way. It has crashed. I'm not sure if my can you guys see this? It's all black.
Black and white.
Okay. Well, I have been on the forum for some time. I think 1.5 years, or 2 years maybe. And I wanted to create a place to voice chat with all the people on the forum, just on the forum. So I created this Discord, and for some time it got unnoticed. You know, we barely had any people. Only a few guys from the server joined. But suddenly...
Yeah, where's your Discord server now? What happened to it?
You called it Flat Earth Society. We understand that you created a server in a chat room. We get that. But we want to know why you used the name Flat Earth Society.
Because I wanted to create an unofficial voice chat server for the forum. So that's why I named it like the forum. But we have no official...
Do you want to tell us what happened to your server?
I'm lost.
It got raided a few times. And it is still up. But I moved ownership to somebody else. I moved ownership to an administrator because I no longer had time for it. But now we have about 3,000 members, you know, a few hundred.
My moderators exposed you as hitting on underage girls. That's what happened to your server. That is exactly what happened.
And that's why we got raided? I don't think so. I think we got raided before such stories came out. Well, anyways, we were getting raided for some times, you know. We got raided like 3 times. And then I moved ownership.
Wait a minute. He's not even denying that he makes sexual advances to people on the internet. That is not a smart thing to do.
Well, we had proof, and they showed it to me. That's why we banned him from our server, and that's why they raided his server, because they exposed him.
Then I will deny it right here. I didn't. I did not hit on underage girls or
Did you
boys.
hit on people on the internet? That's my question. I don't know.
Hold
People
on.
can pretend they're something that they're not.
He's in the middle of denying it. Number one, there's nothing wrong with hitting on people on the internet. There's nothing wrong with that. And he's in the middle of denying.
It can get you in trouble. I mean,
I did not.
Nothing wrong with hitting on people on the internet.
Well, all I'm saying is it can lead to a lot of trouble. Is it wrong? Is it right? Is it moral? I'm just saying it's not. If you want to do it, it's okay, but it can.
I don't think there's anything wrong with hitting on people on the internet, but once you know that they're underage, then that becomes wrong.
Yeah,
I would agree.
Okay. So I still want to know why you chose to call it the Flat Earth Society.
Because why did I do it again? Let me think.
Because he was trolling.
No, Karen. Stop. You have no evidence of me trolling the Flat Earth movement.
Well, so having a Discord server named the Flat Earth Society run by ball earthers is not trolling?
What's wrong with having?
Because you're putting on a front that making people think that you're a flat earther or a member of the Flat Earth Society, but then people go there and you just troll them. That's what you guys did.
No, it doesn't matter what you believe if you are a moderator. I mean, if you are a moderator, you have to keep everything organized and you have to keep people who how do you say it, who disobey the rules. You have to ban those people. It doesn't matter if you what you believe or not, as long as you enforce the rules of the server. That's the job of a moderator.
But do you understand the point that if you present yourself as Flat Earth Society, but you're actually ballers, that's like saying that you're the red team support, you're the red support team, but actually you're the blue team. That is trolling.
Yeah. That would be like if I made a website called NASA. I don't know which one don't they own? Maybe .cn for China or .io, and I put all flat Earth stuff on it. I mean, come on, that would be just shitty, Apollo. It's I don't know what to call it. It's just.
Well, I was serious about it, and I'm sure we have had some great people, you know, active in the debate channels who were very serious, and we allowed flat earthers from the old server on, you know. So Karen, we allowed you guys on, and for some time we even.
It's not the point of who had access to it. Is that a person that's new to this question is going to look at you and they're going to think that you're about the flat Earth, and you're not, and that's just
no.
Okay, just keep denying it.
Exactly.
Whatever.
Exactly. That's exactly what they did.
Well, that's shit, because now our server has a flat Earth moderator. So tough shit.
I don't care about.
Massive shout out to Math Powerland of the NASA channel.
Apollo, I think you did all right. It's a clickbait. People type in Flat Earth. They say, Flat Earth Society, what the hell is this? Let me go. And they find you. All right. I mean, more power to you. I can title my videos Flat Earth, Spherical, Illuminati, Reptilian, freaking conspiracies. And the only thing I'm talking is about Flat Earth. I don't talk any of this other subjects, but I can throw a little clickbait title so people to check in, you know. It's all right. You can title whatever you want, whether you believe it or not. That's the other part of the story.
Doesn't make him a noble individual.
Definitely
it is
just because just because I believe in a ball Earth doesn't mean I can't be serious on the debate of the flat Earth.
Right, but there's a difference between being serious about the debate on Flat Earth and representing yourself as the Flat Earth Society, which would be the opposing team to what your beliefs are, right?
He's not going to recognize this point. He's just going to keep deflecting, it's okay. He's free to do so. Just, you know, I hope you're happy with your actions. If you sleep well at night with that behavior, good on you. Cool.
You're basically saying it's false advertising, right?
Yeah, pretty much. We can call it a number of things here.
That's exactly what it was.
Yeah, this went to the left big time. Apollo has a lot to offer in this show, and he's a ball earther. He's a polite guy to argue with. He has an open mind, and I like your content, Apollo. Bring it up, brother.
Thank you. Sorry, I crashed, so I had to reload.
It's all right. I love the photos of Egypt that you showed last time, and you show all the moon stuff, and I appreciate you. Personally appreciate it.
So how's the odd server going, Karen? Pretty good, right? You have like 11,000 members now, I think.
Just over 10,000 members, yes.
Okay. Nice.
Sorry, proper plug for that, please, Karen.
The 24/7 Flat Earth Discord server. It's the biggest Flat Earth Discord server, and we've got 10,000 plus members. It was spawned off of the ODD live stream.
You know, we used to have 8,000 people, you know, before we got raided. Oops.
When you say got raided, what does that actually mean?
It means, well, it can mean two things. It can mean your server is getting spammed, so spam bots join the server and just spam it to shit. Or it can mean, or in this case, some of our staff, you know, admins, moderators, and helpers, they got rogue. So they basically destroyed the server and banned everybody, you know, banned like 8,000 people. So bad decisions on my part on promoting some of these guys. You know, they weren't happy with some of the decisions that were made. So they decided to basically destroy the server and ban everybody. So I had to build it all up again. Lots of stress.
And you had to change the name of the server, didn't you?
Yeah, I changed the name of the server. Yes. What about it? It's now called Flat Earth Debate Server. Yeah. I'm not on that much anymore. Just occasionally.
Why didn't you call it Ball Earth Society?
Yeah, like we live on a ball, morons, or something like that.
Because that would be childish.
Yeah, but
what?
Do you see the point that if you represent yourself as Flat Earth Society, but you're actually ballers, that misleads people to think to what they think that you guys are going to do to them if they were to come in and start talking, because you would expect the owners or the admin of the server to be friendly, right?
Well, we were friendly. I mean, we are friendly towards flat earthers. I mean, we accept
though, right?
everybody. Yeah, I understand your point, but I care more about the argument on someone's capability to argue than just care about his belief.
Yeah, it's not really a belief, though, that the Earth's flat.
Okay, yeah. Again, let's not even go there.
You have to believe it's a globe, Apollo.
Yes, well, I keep saying belief, so. Globe, belief, flat earth, fact. You heard it first from me, folks.
How come NASA used to be able not? I mean, how come in the photos there wasn't stars in the early days of NASA in space photos, but now there are stars? Well, what's the deal with that?
Well,
the cameras.
Today's digital cameras have a much easier time capturing stars because you no longer have to deal with film, and film has much lower sensitivities, and it has a reciprocity failure. So the longer you expose film, the lower its sensitivity to light. To lower the sensitivity. So if you would say want to expose to light 5 seconds, you would actually have to expose, let's say, 15 seconds to get the same amount of exposure a digital sensor would get with
Like,
5
I'm going to leave these guys debating the whys and wherefores of whether or not you can capture the stars from the vacuum of space, which is a second law of thermodynamics violation. As I say, first and foremost, a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of the live audience for tuning in and hopefully sharing this debate. And of course, a massive thank you to all of the debating panel for making this debate possible. Over on Nathan Oakley channel, in a few short moments, there'll be the pre-show together with the last debate. If you are a late riser, that will replay, as I say, with the pre-show in about 5 minutes time. I'll stick a link in the info box. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
taken of stars, they were also taken with high sensitivity film, long exposures. But today with digital cameras, it is much easier to take um, um, low light photos than with film. But it is possible with both, just easier with digital.
Yeah, it doesn't sound right.
Hello. Don't kick me. Somebody just kicked me.
That was me. I didn't know if it was you or not. Sorry.
Your T.
So, sorry, I might be explaining this quite incoherently. Can you explain what you don't understand yet? I mean, I have lots of analog and digital cameras.
When you use a digital camera, you set the ISO of the sensor, so you can set the sensitivity, so you can mimic film.
That is correct. However, film has a reciprocity failure. And what this means is that with most films, excluding a few special films, the longer you expose a film, the lower its sensitivity. So let's say you have a film of 500 ISO and you expose it for 5 seconds. By the time
I just wanted to say, but with film, you're able to take pictures of the stars on Earth.
That is correct.
But when you go to outer space, film doesn't pick up the stars anymore.
It does if you have the correct film speed and the correct exposure. You know, for example, star photos taken on Apollo missions used a high speed film. Like, let me think, which one was it again? I think they used, I'm not sure how to pronounce this, 6400 speed film. So that would be 6400 ISO film. And they used an f1.2 lens. And then they used exposures of 15 seconds or something. And then they did capture stars. But most photos, almost all photos, were taken with on the moon or off the moon or off the spacecrafts, which were lit by sunlight most of the time. So for those photos, for most of the photos, you just needed normal daylight sensitive film.
So, can I ask you a question real quick? So, if the story was true, if they wanted to make a photo of the Earth and the stars at the same time, it would have been impossible, right? Because the Earth would either would have looked white if they wanted to have the stars and the Earth at the same time on the photo. Or isn't it how cameras work about exposure time?
It would be like that, yes, because the Earth, the light reflected from the Earth, because if you look down, you basically see the light that's reflected back. So on this light is much brighter than the light your eyes receive at night when you look at the sky. Of course, there is some atmospheric interference. The atmosphere removes some amount of light from the stars, but not everything. I think it's like 15%.
Yeah,
so,
being in
yes.
outer space, we'd be able to see the stars much easier than down on Earth.
Yes, much easier.
Zinder.
Yeah.
Karen, are you there?
I am.
Karen, do you know that Zinder is a baller, but he realizes that we don't live on a ball, but he doesn't want to, because he's not comfortable with the word flat.
Doesn't mean I am a baller. I just say I don't know if the Earth is flat.
Yeah, I know people that don't like to say that they're flat earthers. They call themselves geocentric direct realists.
Yeah, I just say I don't know the shape of the Earth. I think that's enough, I guess. I know that it's probably not round yet.
Sphere is the word.
Yeah, sphere or geoid, or I don't know.
Not spherical.
Yeah.
I just find it interesting that his position. Were you a baller before you come to the show, Zinder, or was it as a result of the show that you might not necessarily think we live on a ball anymore?
Well, I was a complete baller before I came on the show. I mean, I kind of believed anything that came from NASA or ESA, because I didn't really look into it. It didn't really interest me too much to say, all right, it might be faked or not. And then I started to look into it a little bit more.
For how long you been in the part of the flat Earth debate? Just joining the show, 2-3 months, maybe?
Yeah, I think maybe August or so. Could be.
Oh, okay.
Maybe even a little bit longer, but I started by joining like not too often. Then I joined a little bit more. So
yeah, Cinder and I had a nice conversation after the show ended yesterday. We were the only two with Nathan after show, and then Nathan left, and me and Cinder we stayed chatting for a bit. It was very, very interesting.
Yeah. I think I still see the heliocentric model as logical in so many ways. I just don't think those things are true because I don't see any evidence for it. I didn't become a globe denier by saying, "Oh, right, this can't be true on a globe Earth," right? I just have seen then other explanations how things work, and then I decided, yeah, probably isn't even a globe.
This is where I'd say, Karen, asking some leading questions.
I do hope I have answered your questions, Daniel. But I'm kind of drunk, so this is 15% alcohol beer, so
What? Really?
Is that why you talk like that?
He always talks like that.
Oh.
Yeah.
What beer is it?
It's
yeah, perfect. Nice. 15%. Wow, this is like even stronger than usual red wine alcohol on the alcohol base.
Yeah, it's Belgian beer, and they have really strong beer, so.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, great taste.
So do they brew it like differently, or do they like extra take more water out of it so the alcohol percentage is higher?
I don't know. I don't know anything about how you brew beer, so don't
neither.
ask me.
Yeah, me neither, honestly. So what did you want to say, Anthony? Sorry, I kind of shifted the conversation in another direction.
Well, I was just hoping that Karen had asked you some leading questions about, like, kind of interview you in a kind of way, because I want to know more about your journey, but we speak all the time. So it's kind of like if Karen's like fresh to the conversation, she can ask genuinely without any bias or whatever. Like, just tell us about your journey, kind of thing. Come on, Karen, help me out here.
Well, what is it that made you realize that you might not be living on a ball?
When I heard, or when I got proof of the angle of view explanation by Jose, it kind of made me realize that chips disappearing behind the horizon doesn't mean that the Earth is round, and was like the proof for me. The proof that chips disappear behind the horizon means round, finished, right? So then Jose made a video in the market where he in the supermarket where he took the flashlight and made it like disappear behind the ground. And the only reason why I took his video as appropriate because I knew the floor in those places usually is kinda level, unlike other floors, right? So this is the first step that took me to the round Earth denying route.
Do you know what he's referring to, Karen?
Not specifically.
Check out the angle of
basically,
attack.
I mean, I get the idea.
There's a playlist on my channel with Jose and about a dozen other people who all did similar variants of something. I'm not going to profess to be the first, but I published it with the title Angle of Attack, and lots of people replicated it in slightly different ways. But what Jose did was he put his camera with a light at the bottom of a supermarket, walked away from it, and then basically just lowered his camera phone, filming it. And as he got to the bottom, the light on the phone at the other end of the flat floor that he's filming on disappears. And then when he raises it up again, it comes back.
Yeah.
Travis's one's the best one. I think that he did it in about 20 feet. He walked about, I think it was about 13 steps I counted that I could see. So call it 15 for a couple that might be off screen. But basically, after about 15 steps, he was able to make his light disappear behind, well, a bendy floor. And we all know that floors can't bend as much as what it needs to in just like 15 feet. It's a fantastic demonstration of the point.
Right.
Yeah. So I realized either that, or either this isn't true, or either I don't know, the Jose CGI'd it or whatever, or he lied about it, or the Earth can't be a sphere because you can't have both effects at the same time and getting the same result as the claim when ships should disappear behind the horizon, because it would kind of contradict each other, or the effect would be doubled, like ships should disappear twice as fast behind the horizon. Something would be wrong then.
That's a pretty easy thing to replicate on your own. Did you ever do your own little test to see if it really happened or not?
Yeah, I didn't do it with a camera.
Well, you don't have to record it, but I mean, just for your own self, just to prove it to yourself, is what I mean.
Yeah, I could see. I did it when I was in Thailand, when we were in a really, really big shopping mall, like what were called like Terminal 21 or so, and it like 150 meters across, and so I looked like a complete idiot, but I put my face really, really close to the ground and closed the left eye, so that the right eye was really, really close to the ground, and I could see the same effect farther away than people have shown with cameras, because I think my eye is a little bit better than a phone camera. So more light can enter it. It has a bigger hole to catch the light. So I did it, and I could see the same effect. So it kind of convinced me that it is a thing. And the Earth's curve, never seen Earth's curve, so I kind of had to go with the angle of view thing.
And what do you have to say about that, Apollo? Have you done any of these tests to disprove these observations?
I have not, but I have been thinking about an experiment using lenses of around the same focal length on different apertures to check it, because I have many different lenses. You know, APS-C lenses, fill frame lenses, medium format lenses, excuse me. And I do want to make an experiment with all those lenses together, to gather more information, but I haven't gotten around to doing it yet.
You should do that.
I should, but working on other things,
You
drinking
should, but it's
beer.
easier to just believe that you live on a spinning ball and be a NASA fanboy.
Not easy these days.
I've got a quick question for you, Apollo. You obviously listened to the show, so you've heard the housekeeping, right?
Yes, many times.
So when we say, how do you have gas pressure without a container, what are your thoughts on that specific question?
Well, some time ago I was talking about an experiment using a vacuum chamber. Unfortunately, the guy has not yet replied, and I don't think he's going to, because he has been talking about this vacuum chamber experiment for like 1.5 years. He's on the Flat Earth Society forum. Nothing yet. He has shown photos of his workshop, but not his vacuum chamber. So I don't know if he actually has one. I think he does, but I don't know why he hasn't showed a photo of it yet. But how do you say this? I don't think we can create an experiment with current technology of the scale that would be required of a mass to gather an atmosphere on an ecosystem to maintain this atmosphere, to maintain a pressure inside a vacuum.
Okay, I mean, I can understand that, but the pressure differential between the vacuum of space at 10 to the minus 17 torr and us at whatever we've got, 14 psi, there's an absolutely enormous difference between the two. I'm not necessarily asking for you to show it in a vacuum, but if we could just see gas pressure at all, so even if it was a couple of psi different to atmospheric pressure, but just being maintained without anything around it.
Well, I assume you are talking about the pressure. You were just talking about the pressure differential between. Sorry, one moment.
Thought Travis would pipe up at that point. Oh yeah, it's got to be a bigger scale, has it?
Shut up, Nathan. Now then. Sorry, I have to go soon because I guess my mother is having problems with her computer, and I have to help her, But I assume you were talking about the pressure differential between the atmospheric pressure we experience on the ground and the pressure of the vacuum of space, yes?
Yeah.
However, but I'm pretty sure many people have told you, and I've heard your response, that there is a pressure gradient. For example, once you are on Mount Everest, there is a lower atmospheric pressure than at the ground. So why are you assuming the pressure differential is the differential between ground pressure and vacuum of space pressure when there is a measurable pressure differential between ground pressure and Mount Everest pressure?
Yeah.
So
you're asking, given that this, are you asserting that because the pressure is lower higher up, that proves there's a vacuum? Is that what you're saying?
No.
So what's the point exactly?
Well, I asked you a question that if you are talking about the pressure differential between the pressure we experience at the ground, where normal people live, on the pressure of the vacuum of space. And you answered with an affirmative answer. But at Mount Everest, we do have a lower pressure than we have on normal ground for the lack of I'm drunk, so
Okay.
so why are you so the pressure differential isn't between the vacuum of space pressure on the ground pressure, but it is between the highest measurable point in the pressure gradient on the vacuum of space. It isn't between the highest pressure, like right here.
So you're saying at the top it might be 1 psi, right?
For example.
Okay. So for example, at the top it's 1 psi. Well, let's make it smaller. Let's say right at the very top it's 0.01 psi. You okay with that?
Yeah, sure.
What's it pressing on?
Sorry?
It's got a psi value. Do you know what psi stands for?
PSI. Pressure per square inch.
Right. So it's got a 0.001 psi. So it's got to press on something, and you measure how much it presses on that thing per square inch. So my question is, what is that 0.0001 psi pressing on?
On the air below it.
No. Pressure doesn't go exclusively down. It expands out in all directions. Did you not know that?
Yes, you are right.
Right. So not below, above. The bit that's a 10 to the minus 17 vacuum, is that what it's pressing on? Because you can't press on the vacuum of space. You disperse into it.
That is correct.
As soon as you try to press, there's nothing to press on. In fact, there's a much lower pressure system, so you disperse into that. So my question is, given that you think that the explanation is that we have a gradient, which I can accept, what's it pressing on at the top?
Well, if I give you my own explanation of it, you will just go on a rant, about gravity. So I think it's a lost cause.
Sorry, gravity is not a proven thing. There's no science for it. There's a Cavendish experiment and some nonsense from Einstein written down in mathematics. That's not proof. So your answer to what it's pressing on gravity. Is that what you're saying?
No, let me clarify. Sorry about that. The higher you go, the less air molecules there are. So eventually, at the top, the gravity is holding the air molecules down on this, so they press down on one another, and eventually, several 100 kilometers down.
No, not down. Cinder. Sorry, Apollo. So what's above it then? So if it's all from the top down pressing down, what's above the top layer pressing down?
Well, I guess eventually you would find air molecules escaping the atmosphere and other molecules, floating around in space, entering the atmosphere.
So you're saying that it would. Top. So you're saying it would escape into the vacuum of space then?
At the very top, some molecules would have a high enough energy to escape the escape velocity of the Earth. I guess you could calculate this.
Let me get this straight. So at the very top, the lowest psi value, the lowest pressure, the least activity going on in those molecules, you're saying that they are being held to the Earth by a non-scientific theory, and they also simultaneously have enough energy to achieve escape velocity, something that is assumed on your spinning ball. So they are simultaneously low enough in energy to have a very low PSI value, not pressing on anything, but actually escaping with escape velocity forces. That's what you're saying.
Sorry, I was merging two different things together. I was confused for a moment.
No problem. Maybe you can tell us what is escape velocity?
Escape velocity is, I think, I'm not in orbital mathematics. I guess it is the amount of energy something needs to escape a body of gravity.
Can I answer you for a moment in actual numbers? So, Earth's gravity supposedly is an acceleration of 9.81 meters per squared, 9.81 meter per meter squared per second, right? Meter per second squared. Sorry, I'm completely confused. So if you reach a higher acceleration than that, you achieve the speed you need to escape Earth's gravity on the heliocentric model. So those air molecules to escape the Earth's gravity would have at least 10 meter per second squared as acceleration, which would be impossible on the heliocentric model because they couldn't reach such high velocities yet alone by the collision with other air molecules on top of the atmosphere.
Yeah, sorry, I was merging. I was talking about the von Allen belts and the atmosphere of the Earth, and I was merging two thoughts together, but I was incorrect about that part, about the escape velocity stuff.
Okay.
Just wanted to clarify.
Well, the problem is, according to an MIT lecturer, if you have a vacuum and you have gas pressure next to it, it instantaneously fills the volume of the vacuum. So if that is what is asserted to be space, and you're saying that the atmosphere can escape into a pressure system that is 10 to the minus 17 torr, then our pressure would instantaneously disperse into that lower pressure system. There's nothing stopping it. If you're saying that a 1 in 150 millionth of the mass is potentially enough to keep it from escaping into a 10 to the minus 17 torr vacuum, neither of which are proven. The vacuum's not proven and the gravity's not proven. So you've got something that's not proven and its flaws being explained away with something else that isn't proven and has flaws.
I don't think, I mean, I've seen the video about the MIT lecture a few times, and I don't think the context of the lecture was taking into account the mass and the gravity of Earth and the atmosphere of Earth. So I don't think the context of the MIT lecture applies to how the Earth's atmosphere works.
So what you're saying is, because he didn't disclaim your religious belief in his lecture, you can handwave dismiss it?
Exactly.
Well, that's outrageous. Based on what has been physically demonstrated in the physical natural world, he has come to those conclusions based on physical and natural laws, things that apply always. Now you're saying you can't recreate anything that's as big as the Earth to show it happening, so believe in it. Because we're not going there, you're not going there, and the reality is there defies the laws of thermodynamics. So you're going to give a handwave dismissal to an MIT lecturer because he didn't disclaim your religious belief in his lecture that's detailing a law of nature.
But he was not taking into account the variables that would come with the context of this discussion, which would be the mass of the Earth and the condition of the atmosphere.
Why would we need to take into account the mass of the Earth?
Because this is one of the causes of our dear atmosphere.
What
How will
cause?
we know what the mass of the Earth is?
What cause? What are you talking
No.
about? What cause? You said it's a cause. What are you talking? Which cause? What are you referring to? Gravity?
Yes.
Well, if you're going to claim that gravity is a cause when it's scientifically defined by all the other Muppets who come on this show as an effect, then you're stupid. It's not a cause. It's not an independent variable. It's an effect, according to your globehead compadres. So, number one, there's no scientific evidence of gravity. What is asserted to be scientific evidence of gravity has been debunked on multiple occasions, namely Cavendish, which is irrelevant anyway because it's been superseded by the bending of space-time.
So there is no scientific evidence of the vacuum of space.
No.
So what if I were to build a CubeSat and paid a company to have it shot up into orbit with a pressure sensor on the camera, while we're at it. Irrelevant for this discussion, sorry. My apologies. And this sensor measures a
The hell?
The plain truth guy just joined before and left. I don't know if he sniped him. Not sure.
Quite possibly.
Are we all being sniped?
Maybe he fucked up and only sniped one person.
Well, frankly, that was going pretty much nowhere anyway.
Yeah.
He has a belief in gravity. There's nothing I'm going to be able to say to disprove it to him. And when I do, he's just going to still assert it. Gravity's real. Gravity solves this problem. No, the MIT lecturer didn't mention it because why would you? It's a law of nature. It's not been demonstrated to be defied by spherical Earth. So why would you need to disclaim that?
But about how much PSI was the MIT guy talking?
Well, he's talking about gas pressure next to a vacuum, unspecified. Any gas pressure next to any vacuum.
Oh, right. Good. Never seen that. I will look it up then.
Under Science versus Scientism on Nathan Oakley 1980 channel.
All right, so I have a very elementary question to ask because Zinder brought up the 9.8, and so I mean, isn't the fact that a person can jump off the ground, that's the escape velocity? A butterfly could escape the pull of the Earth if it could fly up high enough.
Yeah. Should I play devil's advocate on it, or?
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. I'm just trying to, based on what you said, I'm just thinking out loud. Well, again, I can leave Earth's surface. I can jump.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all you need. All you have to do is perpetuate your motion. You don't have to get up to 10,000 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And now ask yourself, how long can you jump off the ground? For how long?
That's not the point.
Yeah, but you reached, once you jumped, you reached 9.
No,
like
I know.
Around
Right.
10 meters.
Yeah. So take a bird, or take a drone. All you have to do is fly a drone up. As long as the drone can keep flying, it doesn't have to fly 10,000 miles an hour. It just has to have the ability to fly long enough, not powerful enough.
Yeah, but that's called lift. I mean, airplanes, butterflies. A butterfly, by the way. Oh god, I can't believe I'm defending it. Okay, a butterfly can stay in the air because it has less mass, which means that less mass gets attracted less not as much as more mass. Do you understand?
Yeah. I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. So a helicopter can only fly so high because the air density gets less and less, so it doesn't have enough to. But again,
no, not that. I was talking about something else. So the more mass something has, the higher, the more it gets attracted. This is the reason why 1 pound ball of steel, when you put it to a spring, it will pull the string further down than a 1 gram ball of steel, because it has more mass and it gets attracted more.
Yeah, but okay. I think I understand conceptually what you're saying, but still the same issue of physics exists. If you can leave the surface of the Earth and still maintain that momentum the entire time, you can, if space existed, go into space. The problem.
No, sorry, that's not true. Go on, please. End your point. Sorry.
Okay. Well, I mean, the issue for me is the higher up you go, the less the air is dense. The less dense is the air. Okay, so that becomes the issue that you have to overcome. You don't have to overcome gravity. You have to overcome, like you said, with an airplane with lift. That is what enables an airplane to fly higher than a helicopter because of its physics.
Mm-hmm.
But it's got nothing to do with having to accelerate to escape the 9.8 meters per second squared.
Well, first of all, to address your momentum thing, I mean, you launch a ball at one direction and it has a certain momentum, right? But the speed upwards will get weaker and weaker because of the acceleration towards the Earth, because of the 9.8 meter per second squared. So that means you can't just fly up where there is less air density with a balloon and then expect to take a ball and throw it upwards and expect it to go infinite, because there's still the downward acceleration. You need a higher acceleration than
you don't need 9.8.
You need an acceleration. You don't need a constant speed, because acceleration is what you need to escape Earth's gravity. You can't just do it with a single push, because a single push isn't the same as a constant acceleration.
Okay, so again,
sorry, Mammon. Sorry, I can't believe I'm defending it. Sorry, go ahead.
You're not defending it. I think we're just having a discussion. I don't agree with you in terms of the acceleration. I would say it has to be a constant. If I throw a ball up into the air, it accelerates, yes. It just has to maintain that velocity. It doesn't have to keep accelerating. It has to just maintain the velocity from which it left my hand.
Yeah, and in order to maintain that velocity, it has to get a counter acceleration, because the Earth is always pulling the ball towards itself. In order for the ball to keep going, it needs a constant acceleration, or it needs a so hard push that it can overcome the amount of time it is in Earth's gravitational field without getting pulled down again. So this is the issue. Acceleration isn't the same as constant speed.
Okay.
Sorry.
No. Okay. So is there anybody else on the panel? Am I missing something, or is Zinder correct?
It's not that you're missing something. It's just based on all the usual assumptions of globiness, right? Well, his explanation's actually pretty concise and pretty good. He's got a good understanding of this. So if you go into the mainstream narrative, accept you're on a ball, accept that space is real, and then explain it with gravity, Zinder's actually got a very good explanation for it within the heliocentric concept.
Yeah, and I understand his explanation. Yeah.
It doesn't mean that anything I just said is true. I mean, as Nathan already said, I think it's complete garbage what I just said. But like 2.5 months ago, I was a baller and I believed it. So it doesn't mean I can like act if I would believe it, right? It's
doesn't change that you understood it before and you still understand it now. And no, it doesn't make sense. You understand the suppositions that have to go along with it for it to make sense. But it doesn't change that you have the understanding of how they explain it, which is what you've done very well. Better than I could, actually.
Thank you. I mean, it's like it's like explaining the plot of a movie. What I just did. It's I just explained to you guys how and why the character in a fictional movie, like let's say in a fantasy movie or whatever, made those decisions. And I think we live in a world where people just explain the plot of things, and they do it so good, and they do it with such precisity that people really think that movie is true. People think Lord of the Rings is true.
Exactly. It's stories. We're told stories of how these things work, and just so stories aren't as good as evidence. But often we'll get given just so stories, like that guy Apollo a minute ago. You know, he's telling us about how gravity's holding this stuff. It's some of it's escape velocity, some of it isn't. You know, all of this is just a story. You know, he's got nothing to back it, but he believes the story, and that's all it is—a belief in a story.
Yeah. And I have to say it was kind of a shock when I recognized it, but I feel much better since then because it opens a lot of possibilities about how things work, and it opens a lot of space to think about it when you don't have all those supposed facts smashed into your face. So,
oh, that's positive, because there's two ways you can go. I was talking to Jared the other day, and he was basically saying that he doesn't like being a flat earther. Anthony's the same. You know, it's all about the negativity of the scorn and the ridicule. Whereas I don't know if it's because I'm a bit passé about people in general. I'm not that fussed about their opinions. Don't really care. So I'm more interested in the, well, we don't know this, we don't know that. That's exciting. So I'm like you, I'm like, wow, well, that's actually quite a positive thing. Not knowing is quite exciting. But for some people, it's not. And I'm not saying either way is right or wrong, but it's just, like I say, it was just eye-opening to hear Jared say, well, you know, I actually hate the position I'm in. It's no fun being hated. And you think, well, I don't view it that way. I know people who come on the debate have a different position to me and hate the position I hold. Some of them claim to hate me. I don't think they do. Deep down, they might claim to, but I don't think they do really.
I don't think either, and I'm kind of glad to be in this position now. It made me a lot happier, and even though I had to be handheld and like pulled out of this stupid elevator or whatever, pulled out of this chamber, I just wanted to hold there. Yeah. It was kind of funny. Sorry.
I have to rudely interrupt.
No problem. I
need to show you guys this. In a comment from Sly's Hangout from last night, I basically said, so what about the R value? Any evidence for radius? It forms a curved surface in all directions at a rate that we can measure. If you can't prove R, then your model has an issue. Sorry. This guy says about Al-Biruni. Forget about him. Look at this one. Logo Sis says, like 2,000 kids from schools all over the world did in March 2015. And I was like, oh, this is quite interesting. So I clicked on the article, and basically I want to take you guys through it because I want to critically analyze this. So this is page 1. If I can make this bigger. Full screen. There we go. So you want to bookmark this because this is really good. A 2,000-year-old inquiry-based hands-on experiment in today's science classrooms. And then there's a couple of citations. Abstract. The ancient Eratosthenes experiment concerned that Earth's circumference offers the opportunity of an inquiry-based revival in today's science classrooms. A multi-international European science education narrative, acronym OSR, introduced this experiment as a hands-on basis to extract the required variables, blah, blah, blah. So basically, introduction, it goes on, a lot of its background, right, here we go. The objectives of this study were fivefold: to define the exact time slot for the local noon, to measure the shadow of during the local noon, to analyze the distance between the school sites, to analyze the angular distance between them, and finally to monitor whether students can use an online forum to discuss why longer distances between two schools can get less measurement errors. So they talk about the method and the procedure. Original experiment. Aristophanes knew about a site where blah, 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 blah. Now, it goes on, right? It talks about this curve and all this. And obviously, from our perspective, we're looking for keywords like the assumption bit. So it goes on. They talk about this. Now, look at this bit here. This looks like they're doing something to do with flat Earth, right? Flat plane, whatever. Following the traditional approach, a stick is placed vertically on the ground. At noon, the shadows are length. Oh, no, so this is local, right? So this is not making the point I thought it was. But anyway, so here we have the curvy maths and all this. And then we get to, not this bit. This is all the schools, the results. And then we get the conclusion after this, which comes up. So discussion, right? Inquiry-based hands-on experiments in classrooms require simple constructs to satisfy a student's curiosity. The ancient Aristophanes experiment provides an excellent inquiry-based hands-on approach for today's students to conceptualize and solve an abstract problem that even contradicts everyday conceptions. We all know that the Earth is round, although it appears flat. Now, I've not seen this citation before, but we're going to have to look into it. But this is basically, look, we all know the Earth is round. Really? But it appears flat. That's to me, this whole document, that sentence is one of the key sentences in it. Anyway, the Aristophanes experiment fulfills many requirements of science lessons. Students need to check their individual measurement scores to transform them into real-world measures, and they need to transfer physical observations into mathematical values. The Aristophanes experiment, with its simple approach, requires all of the subject integrative argumentation, which brought Aristophanes to his famous solution. No fancy equipment is needed, but simply following the footsteps of Aristophanes with his very simple assumptions may force a student to argue as a scientist by discussing evidence. Nevertheless, students aren't discussing why the circumference of Earth is important to know, or whether they may. Nevertheless, students aren't discussing why the circumference of Earth is important to know, or whether they may improve their Aristophanes measurement using technologies. The lesson's question is focusing on why are they taking so many measurements when only 2 will do. That's not what Neil deGrasse says. He said you need to take 3. Therefore, our approach may be an activity rather than an experiment, since the latter commonly trying to answer a research question, while the first is repeating an experiment with the intent to come as close as possible to an already known answer. So basically, this is where I've got up to. I've not got any further than this. But basically, it admits that we all know that the Earth's a sphere. So they're not addressing the point that Neil deGrasse Tyson states, which is that the maths works both ways. They're assuming the sphere in doing this, yet claiming that it proves, again, that they've validated Aristophanes' experiment, but they haven't. They've repeated it.
It's got it right there. They've got the centre of the Earth and R. So they're saying, where are these students going to measure that value? Yeah, just go and double check all this. See if you can get it more accurate. Excuse me. Can I just how do I verify this R value? Oh no, we all know the Earth's a sphere, even though it looks flat. I read that in the paper, but how do I verify this value? You don't. You assume it.
Yeah. It's just astonishing that they say this word here. We all know that the Earth is round, although it appears as flat. And then it's got Voyasanu, 1994, see below. Now, I don't know where this Voyasanu is, but I reckon Voyasanu is going to come up in these citations here. There we go. 1992, 2001. Voyasanu, there we go. So Voyasanu, this is what I'm going to have a look now to see, because I've not seen this citation before. So we'll have to try this. So we'll search for this and see what Voyasanu tells us, because this is new information. If this is new information, this is really good. But I wanted to share this because I've just been told it, so it's like I really want to see it.
Awesome. It's nice to have it written down. You know, just tell the students they're on a sphere. Aren't you supposed to be proving that? No, we already know that. Well, where have you got it from? Well, this assumption of R. Just use that. You'll be fine. Do the other bits. Assume R. We already know.
Universal and culture-specific properties of children's mental models of the Earth in Mapping the Mind, New York, Cambridge Press. So Voyasanu is the citation. That's what we need. And I don't think it exists on the internet. So let's see if we can find it. It's too big.
Doesn't it give a link in the document?
No, not it just cites it.
I think it does. I saw a HTTP or not.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I did see a link.
Well, it says we all know that the Earth is round, although it appears flat.
I mean the origin of the citation below. I did see a link.
I don't think you did.
Below HTTP
right.
DXO.
Oh, it's here. Now hopefully I can get this. Let's make it bigger. Oh, well done, lad. Well done. Stella Viasano, right? So export citation.
There was a couple for him. Unless there's someone with a very similar spelling and I'm just blurry-eyed, but it certainly looked like there was more than one reference for him.
There was, but this is the one of 1994, which is what it was cited as.
Okay.
Published from university. There we go. So maybe this is going to work. Oh, it's not giving me the summary. This chapter develops some of the ideas about domain specificality and cultural knowledge based on a series of studies, children concepts of the Earth. See Voyasanu, 1989 to 91 and 92. More specifically, I argue the concept of the Earth is originally embedded within a naive theory of physics and is constrained by certain entrenched presuppositions that are applied to physical objects in general. Although the process of conceptual change appears to be fundamentally the same in children growing up culturally diverse backgrounds, there is considerable cultural mediation in the construction of the specific mental models of the Earth that children in different cultures form. Finally, it is argued that the acquisition of the culturally accepted model of the spherical Earth as an astronomical object surrounded by space cannot be accounted for as a product of enrichment, but involves a major conceptual reorganization proceeding through the suspension or revision of some of the presuppositions that belong to the naive theory of physics. That is a flat Earth book.
It is.
Right, I need to get that book.
Absolutely awesome. So that's cited as the citation when he says the Earth is a sphere but can be taken as flat. You go to the citation and he's basically saying it's riddled with presuppositions, it's based on a model. This is all our arguments in that one paragraph.
So what I'm going to do now, because I've got ballers on the panel, I'm going to have to stop screen sharing, but what I'll do is I'll see if we've got this in the electronic library at the university, because if we have, I can get it.
Oh.
How long do you need? Is it going to be an hour's worth of work?
No, 3 or 4 minutes. I'm just going to get into the library. Cool. Bear with me. Current students. Electronic library.
Have I got time to make a cup of coffee?
Yeah.
Do that then.
Didn't it give a link? Didn't the website with the citation also give a link to the book? I did see a link somewhere, so maybe that was it.
Anthony, can you give the original link?
Yeah. The original link. Hang on. Let's get that. So, you mean the original link to the science paper?
I guess whatever you first started with, and then.
Right, so there's the link. Oh shit, that's gone wrong. Hang on. That would be that one. Get rid of that. Paste that. So ignore that link I've just put in. That's wrong. That's the link there, the second one.
Okay, thank you.
sciedu.ca. Can you see that in the side chat, Travis? Travis.
I got it. It pulled up right away on the screen.
So now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to see if I can find this book. eBook library, electronic books, now part of eBook Central. I think I'm in the wrong place here. Library catalog. Yes, this is it. Library account, databases, library website, journal search. I want library. Got it. Search
Citation
for. Right, let's see if they've got
I've always
it.
suspected, which is when John was explaining to me about it was slightly contextually different because he was explaining about people on the scientific side that he had encountered that did believe in God, and he even had a few citations to back it up. Nonetheless, his examples are similar vein to the idea that the intellectuals of this world who are actually going through this stuff and peer reviewing it understand implicitly that it's a model. They understand the reification fallacy, and they get intrinsically that we don't live on a model. And citations like that prove that to me. Somebody somewhere has gone, what we're going to teach kids is that basically it is a globe. We understand that it's riddled. We understand that it's based on a lot of suppositions. We understand that it's not the world we live on because it's a model. You know, that citation's excellent, but also absolutely infuriating. Because they know it's not a bloody ball. That's the bottom line. They know we don't live on a model. They know that in their phraseology that it's just accepted. So let's carry on with the acceptance.
Anthony, what was the citation that you went to? Was it at the very end?
Yeah.
Yadu?
So in the document, when I read it, it was where is it? If you open up the document,
I'm right at the very end near the appendix, so I thought it was toward the end when I saw you scrolling.
Yeah, I think it's the top one of the surname that is
how do you say it? It's a difficult name to say.
Pardon?
It's a really difficult name to say.
Yeah, Vosniadu. Yeah, Vosniadu, 1994.
Vosniadu.
Stella Vosniadu. But I found one of the books in the library, but it's not that same book. But it says the description of the book, and I've got the book. I can read it. The description says, this study reports data on the acquisition of knowledge about astronomy in children from India. Based on prior research, we hypothesize that the cosmological models that children construct are influenced by first-order and second-order constraints on knowledge acquisition. First-order constraints are the implicit assumptions that govern the construction of the initial cosmological models. Examples of such constraints include the assumption that the Earth is flat and supported. Such first-order constraints are presumed to be universal. Second-order constraints arise from the specific properties ascribed to the cosmological objects. For example, the representations of the Earth's shape and location relative to the sun and moon constrain the kinds of mechanisms that are generated to account for the day-night cycle. We hypothesized that in cultures where both folk cosmological and the scientific cosmological model are accessible to children, aspects of folk models are likely to be incorporated in children's cosmologies if they provide a psychologically easier way of satisfying first-order constraints. This hypothesis is supported by findings with regard to universality and culture specificity in children's cosmologies. Indian children's cosmologies honor a variety of universal first-order constraints. These include constraints on the shape of the Earth, support and flatness, example, and on the other relative locations and motions of the objects in the cosmology. However, many Indian children borrow the idea that the Earth is supported by an ocean or a body of water from folk cosmology. This solution to the support constraints on the shape of the Earth is not found in American children's initial cosmologies. Okay, that's a convoluted way of saying that they get taught something different.
Well, they're saying that their first order restraint is flat and stationary but supported. So that's the cosmology that they work under the premise of. But I don't really understand why this is cited next to somebody saying we know the Earth is flat, even though it appears. We know the Earth is a ball, even though it appears flat. Well, why would you cite a reference that's specifically talking about somebody else that's got first order restraints on their cosmology that are flat? That makes no sense. I mean, they're also referencing. Maybe it's because it's referencing it that their restraints don't work with the cosmology that's currently accepted. Am I reading between the lines too much if I say that?
I don't know. I think we need to know a little bit more. Right, here we go. I found one of her papers. It's a 1996 paper. Oh, actually, this is it. This is the document, right? So this study report, right? So that's that. children's cosmologies, the current study, university and cultural mediation. Oh, here we go. So Wozniacki and Brewer's 1992 and 94 paper, Analysis of Constraints, suggests that the same pattern of development in children's cosmologies should be observed in all cultures where the scientific model is the prevalent adult cultural model and the one presented in a formal institution. That will be what we get taught. In the USA, the scientific model is the only prevalent cultural model. The situation is more complicated in Indias such as India and Greece, where indigenous cosmologies may compete with the scientific model. Really? In these countries, the scientific model is the one presented to children in formal instruction and the one they eventually acquire. However, indigenous cosmologies embodied in mythology are more accessible to children in these cultures than equivalent pre-Copernican alternatives are in American culture. It is therefore possible and indeed likely that such indigenous cosmologies also influence children's conceptual development. Prior work on the children's earth-shaped concepts illustrates this point. The American data, Wozniacki and Brewer, and the Samoan data, and then there's names I can't read, provide evidence that there are several distinct mental models of the Earth that are compatible with both flatness and support constraints, e.g. the American disk Earth and the Samoan ring Earth. I've not even heard of that. However, the distribution of such models varies across cultures and can be influenced by a variety of culture-specific beliefs. For example, the Samoan ring Earth, in which the Earth is shaped like an atoll. What's an atoll? A-T-O-L-L? Appears to be a unique culture-specific variant of the initial Earth-shaped models, which is influenced by prototypical organizations of Samoan social space. We expect that aspects of the indigenous Indian cultural models are most likely to be incorporated into children's cosmologies if they readily satisfy first-order constraints such as flatness and support constraints. In other words, Indian children's initial cosmology should honor certain universal first-order constraints, but the way in which these constraints are satisfied may be culturally mediated. Let's see what the conclusion is. Method. Oh my God.
What the hell is cultural mediation?
Indoctrination.
Yeah, that's another word for indoctrination.
That's what I thought. I was like, cultural mediation? Well, mediation means to get involved and sort out an issue between parties. So, cultural mediation means we're going to intervene with your culture and how you see the world.
Right, check this, guys. Click my share screen. So they've got this method. I'm not sure what they're actually doing here, but the method says the participants were 38 children who attended 2 private elementary schools in which English was the medium of instruction. There were 19 children in the first grade, and so on. The study was conducted in the city of Hyderabad. The city is the state capital of whatever and a center of commerce and industry. Geographically, it is an inland city located on the Deccan Plateau in peninsular India. Culturally, Hyderabad is typical of any modern Indian city, a blend of industrial, Western, and traditional Indian cultures. Astronomy curriculum in schools. In the schools that the children attended, the astronomy curriculum was comparable to that taught to the American elementary school children. The first grade children had been taught 1 unit on the shape of the Earth. The third graders were taught units on the shape and motion of the Earth and on a day-night cycle in the second grade. In the third grade, students had, and look at these, sphere, truncated sphere, hollow sphere, disc, square, cone. These are all shapes of the Earth, right? Had been taught a unit on the solar system in which they studied the locations and motions of the planets relative to the sun. Several months prior to the beginning of our study, although there were no globes permanently placed in the children's classrooms, the teachers told us that they had used globes, which they had obtained from central resource rooms in their schools when they taught units on the Earth's shape and the day-night cycle. The instrument used to assess materials. The instrument used to assess the children's cosmologies was a structured astronomy questionnaire. The questionnaire used in the Indian study was a modified version of the longer questionnaire developed for the University of Illinois. In this article, we focus on 4 aspects of children's knowledge of astronomy. We present data on the Indian children's conceptions of A, the Earth's shape, B, the movements of the Earth, Sun, and Moon, C, day and night cycle, and D, children's overall cosmologies. Each target concept was tested with several questions. Some questions required only verbal responses, where others required the children to explain their verbal responses with clay models that they made or with styrofoam models that they selected. Right, so see figure 1, that's that. So they've got styrofoam models of stuff. The set of styrofoam models contained a decoy shape, a cone, to test our assumption that the children's choice of models did reflect their beliefs about the shape of the Earth. Fucking hell, so they are actually talking about it in other areas of the world, but just not in the Western world. So, scoring. The general scoring procedure employed was developed by Vossiardano and Brewer. The children's responses to each question was first scored independently, and then we determined if a given child's pattern of scores for a target concept, such as the Earth's shape, would fit a theoretical predicted pattern for one of a class of pre-established mental models. If a child's response pattern failed to meet the classification criteria for a pre-existing model, we then reread the protocol to determine if the child might have a new technique model that we had not anticipated. If so, we established a new mental model category and specified the response criteria.
Sorry, stop a sec. Can you read that sentence again about them ascertaining if the child had a new model? Can you just read that again?
If a child's response pattern failed to meet the classification criteria for any pre-existing model, then we reread the protocol to determine if the child might have a new unique model that we had not anticipated. In other words, they weren't telling them that they were wrong.
Okay.
If so, we established a new mental model category and specified the response criteria for classification in that category. If we were unable to understand the child's response pattern in terms of a consistent mental model, the child was scored as being unclassifiable or mixed with regard to the target concept. 2 independent judges scored all the protocols, and the degree of agreement between judges was high. After scoring the protocols independently, the 2 judges resolved all remaining disagreements through discussion. Procedure, results. Right, in this section we present data on Indian children's conceptions of the Earth's shape, the motions of the Earth, the Moon and the Sun, and day and night cycle. We then discuss how these concepts are integrated into children's overall cosmologies. The shape of the Earth. 10 questions were used to examine the children's belief about the shape of the Earth. The children were placed into various mental model categories based on their responses to these questions. Tables 1A and 1B show the types of responses that were given by children placed in each of 8 mental model categories to each question concerning the Earth's shape. Following Vossiano and Brewer, acceptable deviations in a mental model category were those responses that were semantically ambiguous but could be interpreted in a manner that was consistent with the model in question. Responses that were not theoretically predicted for a particular model but that were subsequently judged to be acceptable deviations are shown in italics. In Table 1A and 1B, there were only 2 responses of this type. Additionally, there were some responses types that were considered neutral because they did not differentiate between a different mental model category. For example, many of the verbal responses on question 2, where do people live on Earth, though unambiguous in and of themselves, on land, in houses, were not specific on regards to which part of the surface that people could live on. Of the 38 children tested, 36 were assigned to one of the 8 mental models in Table 1A and B. 2 children gave responses that deviated significantly from the theoretically predicted pattern of responses for each of the mental model categories. Their responses across the various Earth shape questions appeared to be mutually inconsistent.
Well, that's the end of this. Pain in the ass. I hate snipers sometimes. I guess I'll get the rest of that off Anthony in the not too distant future. So with that, I will say, first and foremost, a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of the Nathan Oakley audience for tuning in and hopefully sharing this after show. If you're watching this on Nathan Oakley channel and you're not aware that it's my second channel, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with all the Flat Earth Debate pre-show and after show goodness. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video. Also, if I've timed this correctly, there should be a live debate starting in a little over an hour's time over on Nathan Oakley channel.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Nathan Oakley 1980, not Nathan Oakley.